on Facebook, excuse me, tonight. And I'm really happy to be here, wrapping up the end of the year. What a tumultuous year we've had. And I am so pleased to be on here tonight with my good friend and master astrologist, Maya White. And Maya is known nationwide, and she's an incredible astrologer. I certainly, anytime I have a question about astrology, she's the one I go to. And she also does something that is quite fascinating, which is astrocartography. So you can get in touch with Maya on her website that's mayawhite.com. But I think Maya is going to give you some more information tonight on how you can reach her. So we're here to tell you about what you might expect in the upcoming year. And we're pretty excited about it because the energy is definitely shifting. So before I get started, though, I just want to introduce Maya. Maya, thank you so much for being on tonight. I so value your insights and your talent and professionalism with astrology. So thank you for being here. Would you like to say a couple of words?
Hi, Michelle. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. And here we are at the almost New Year's Eve day of the, the most amazing year, 2020, the unforgettable year. And I've been driving around quite a bit today, this afternoon. And I have to say, you know, for some reason, like it hit me, it hit home that it's like, wow, this was a tough year. You know, just being out in the public and seeing how people who work in the stores have to, you know, have to deal with their customers and everything. And you know, the thing is that on some level we're all in this together. And with that, I'm going to say that I feel that that's a theme. It's just setting the tone for 2021. We're all in it together.
Absolutely. The one thing I wanted to touch on now, I'm going to talk about a little bit of the numerology, and then we'll switch back again to you with the astrology. So, but I wanted to ask a question before I forget about it, and that is the conjunction that occurred on the 21st. And I'm just wondering, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of things, but I know there was a lot of talk about that wrapped around that event. And I know just a very, very little about it astrologically. And I know, of course, you know, being the master astrologist that you are, can you just tell us, because I think for some people, they thought the skies were going to open up on that day because it was such a momentous occasion. And can you just address that a little bit and talk about what that meant, or do you want to save that?
No, we can talk about it right now if you want to.
Yeah, I'd like to.
I know there's a lot of interest in this, and there is, you know, first of all, just for everything on this show, there's so much to unpack, you know, right?
Oh, gosh.
For the year ahead, but this conjunction of two planets, it was a planetary conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. And it was very unique and relevant and important in many ways. So one of the first ways that it was important is that these two planets join in the sky every 20 years. So that's not, you know, it's not like it never happens that Jupiter is conjunct Saturn. However, they this year joined very much more closely than they ever have, and than they have for like 800 years. And the way I describe it is that the beauty of it is you could see this developing in the sky every night. You go out and look up and you could see it, and it was visible really like all over the earth. I have a client in Australia, and you know, she would go out at sunset and look at it, and I'm in the US, I would go out and look at it. So these planets were not only at the same degree, so the same degree would be like, you know, degree 1, degree 2. So they were at 0 to 1 degree of Aquarius. They started, but they were also, if you were to think of them as being on a ladder. So a planet can be at the same degree and it could be at different steps on a ladder. Right?
Okay, right.
One planet could be at the bottom step and one planet could be at the top step, but they're still at this same degree on the ladder. Well, this time the planets were on the same step of the ladder.
Oh, and that's very significant, is it not?
Yeah, it really is a true fusion and union. And like, it's just so that's one thing that was unusual. The visibility of it was unusual. And for the past, every 200 years, these planets meet in a certain element. So for the past 200 years, they have been meeting in Earth element, Taurus, Capricorn. This time they changed element. They moved into the air element, where they will be for the next 200 years joining. And again, this is like a shift of energy. And it has been 800 years since they were in both in like an air element joined. Plus, this is to me the big takeaway, that I found it personally to be one of the most inspiring things of my lifetime. And I mean, I go out, I watch the stars, I look a lot, I love to see them, but I think I'm a bit pragmatic. It's like, okay, you know, we've seen this before, and you know, Y2K, the world didn't blow up. 2012, you know, the end of the Mayan calendar, here we are, life goes on. So I've learned to, I guess, pace myself a bit. But I will say personally that I feel this was an amazing, inspiring event.
So that I'm glad that you you know, enlightened us, and it's heralding in a lot of new, really positive energy, right? Is it now that we are truly in the age of Aquarius?
For an age, a planetary age or an Earth age, I guess you would call it, lasts approximately 2,080 years. Or 2,260 years, like, you know, kind of. So it's like a shifting. It's hard. It's impossible to say, oh my God, this is a one day, like we went from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. So it's more like it is a cycle, but we have shifted into the cycle. But again, personally, and especially as we talk about the astrology of 2021, I feel this was a very significant signature event. And that's part of the definition of a change of the ages, is that there will be events that occur, not only one. So the 2012, the end of the Mayan calendar, that was an event that occurred that led us into the age of Aquarius. This is another event taking us into the age of Aquarius. Technically, I think it would be said maybe it might not be fully until like 2060, right? So
Wow.
So again, we're talking about long-term cycles here.
But it definitely is having an effect on the planet and the energy, and of course.
Yeah, so maybe think of it like a tipping point. So we were at 49, now we've tipped over to like 51%, right? Maybe we're not 100% there, but we are definitely, I think that tipped the.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. And numerologically, although I'm not doing, you know, a long-term 20-year interpretation, but we're definitely shifting into a new energy, which is going to be really interesting in the upcoming year. So let me talk a little bit about the numerology, and then we'll shift over again to the astrology. And let me just say, if anybody has any questions, Our good friend Terry is watching the Facebook. And so if anybody has any questions, she's going to put it in the chat for us that we hopefully can answer for you. Astrology and numerology are not just woo-woo modalities, or they're really a science, and it plays out every year over and over again, and you can see how it plays out. Maya and I did talk about in the beginning of this year that we knew that this was going to be both astrologically and numerologically, this was going to be an eventful year. I did not know that it was going to be a pandemic, but I knew that the vibration, which was a 22-4, it was going to be significant. And I also knew that it was going to be, and as Maya did, it was going to be a year when we were being called to pay attention. And sometimes the universe, if you don't pay attention to the subtle nudges from the universe, then unfortunately we get hit with, what I call 2x4 therapy. So maybe that was part of it this year. I think that was. But what's going to happen is now the world, and for me, when I do numerology, because I live in the United States and I know the birth date of the United States and the name of the United States, it's easy for me to chart the United States. And so I not only do the US of A, but I do the world. So, and those are two different vibrations. So the world is going into a 5 energy, and that's really easy to figure out. 2021, 2 and 2 is 4 and 1 is 5. So the 5 energy is really very mercurial, and it's also going to be a change, a huge change in the world, because that's what 5 is about. It's about changes. And that means that, for one thing, weather can be really intense at times. So we might be seeing a lot of different Earth events occurring more than normal. And in a 5 energy, things kind of go up and down. They're like, oh, wow, things are really going great. And then not so good. And then much better. And then not so good. But it's really opening the door for a lot of positive change. So more people will be speaking out. People want to be heard. They're looking for outlets to express themselves. Now, for the United States, the energy for the United States, is a little bit different, because we're going into the very spiritual number 7. And number 7 is very interesting in numerology. And I almost, when I say the number 7, I want to get really quiet, because the 7-year energy is spiritual, it's reflective, it's investigation, it's analytical, it's examining things, it's pulling things out that we hadn't looked at before. So what I do expect that in the 7-year, on one hand, it's asking us to be, as I said, reflective and investigative. It's pulling things out. So there may not, I don't want to say there may be, there will be scandals that occur, and that will give us an opportunity to re-examine things. But also, we're going to be educated in some way, and I'm not quite sure how this is going to come out, but we're going to be educated in one way or another about new things. And this sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but it just might be the year that we really hear about something like alien contact. I think that that's really a possibility. Also, when I charted the US, we have been at a crossroads for a couple of years now. One of the letters that's transiting, and it happens to be the letter T. So when the letter T shows up, I always think of it as, on one hand, it's almost like it's like a crucifix, like being, being sacrificial, like having this energy of being at a crossroads and having to make the right decisions.
Michelle, is that transiting letter T for the United States chart or for the world?
For the United States.
United States.
Yeah. So, but this is going to be the last year. Now, understand that in a numerology chart, there's two energies that are going on. And one of the energies goes, your personal year goes from January to December. But depending on where your birthday falls, that brings in another energy. So if you have a birthday in the beginning of the year or the end of the year, your cycles kind of run concurrently. It's not a big change. But in the United States, the birthday is in July. So for the first 6 months of 2021, we're under a couple of different transits that will change around June or July of 2021. So for the first 6 or 7 months of the year, it's going to be, I think there's going to be important decisions that are going to be made. But also it's not going to be, it's very philosophical. It brings in long distance discussions about things. It's reestablishing some relationships that may not have been there before, but in a positive way. And also it's a more calm and inner determination. As I said, it's kind of a quiet energy that's occurring for the whole year, but especially in the first 6 to 7 months. And education, I think I mentioned that before, but education is going to be a big thing in one way or another for the United States. Now, whether we're being educated in new ways of doing things, or it's just going to be other opportunities for education, but that's a very predominant aspect for the number 7. Now, also, we're going to need patience because the 7 kind of unrolls in a really kind of slow fashion. So it kind of unrolls in, in ways that may not be apparent at that particular time, but things are always working under the surface. Now, the great thing about the 7, it is a call to your higher self. So I do think that without a doubt, more and more people, I don't want to really, I was going to say are waking up, but I don't want to necessarily say waking up. They're coming to maybe a new awareness about things. Now, certainly we can say that happened or is happening because of what we've experienced for the year. But on another more spiritual level, we're definitely being drawn up, or our energy, our spirit, our soul is being drawn up. So there's going to be more and more people who are just looking into spiritual ways of dealing in the world, as opposed to this hard driving, have to do it this way. It's a much softer energy.
And yes. Michelle, is that 7 from the birth date of the US?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's a 7. And do you use July 4th, 1776?
Yes. Yep. That's exactly what I do. So it's
somebody asked that on the chat.
Oh, okay. Are you watching it?
Yeah.
God, this is going to be my year to be able to maneuver the technological aspects of this. Thank you. Yeah, so that's based on the birth of the United States. As I said, it has a different energy than the world. But then, just like all numbers, like in a relationship, when I do somebody's chart that's married or together with someone, and they want both their charts done, because here's a good example. So the numbers go from 1 to 9. your personal year number goes from 1 to 9, and that's calculated on your month and day of birth added to the current calendar year. So that's how I come up with what your personal year is. So if you're in a 1 year and your spouse is in a 1 year, or your significant other, whoever, you're both having the same kind of driving energy and ambition, very ambitious. If you're in a 1 year and your partner's in a 2 year, that's going to shift things a little bit, because you're going to be out there going, I got to get this done, I got to do these things. And then your partner's in a 2 year, and it's going to be like, hey, you know what? I don't just have all that drive this year. I want to kind of just rest and relax and not. So, sometimes it's no issue at all. But when if you get to a 9 year and you're both in a 9 year, that can be a lot of fireworks going on. So as Kevin Quinn Avery, who taught me, used to say, if two people are in a 1 year together, it's I love you so much and everything's wonderful. And in a 9 year, it's like all hell breaks loose. So if they can just get through that 9 year, they'll be fine again, in the upcoming 1 year. But at any rate, so for the United States being in a 7 year and the world being in a 5 year, so when you add those numbers together, you get the interaction of the United States and the world. What is that going to look like? So 7 and 5 is 12, and 1 and 2 is 3. Now that really excites me. I'm really glad to know that and see that, because a 3, the positive aspects of a 3 is creating new things, creating new ways of being in the world. It's very positive for ideas and how we're going to change things, and excitement and joy. Now, the other side of 3, because every number has its gift and every number has its challenge. And that's the beauty of numerology. Whatever year you're in, you want to go with the flow of that energy and not fight against it, because it makes things a lot easier for you to maneuver and navigate through the year. So the 3 year, the positive aspects is this creative energy, new things, having new ideas, innovative, a lot of communication. The challenging part of the 3, though, is that we may be spinning our wheels at times in different directions, and there might be like a scattering of the energy. So what we want to do, and what I hope happens, is the world is going to embrace this new energy with the United States of being really creative and coming up with these wonderful ideas and being joyful. So that really excites me. Yes.
Hopefully the world will renew seeing the United States as a spiritual partner, as a true spirituality. So I actually have a question. Terry asked me to address Uranus in Taurus, but what I wanted to ask you about the number 7, Michele, would you say that it's a spirituality? Is it true spirituality, or is it like religion? Is it a trained spirituality? You know what I mean? Is it true essence, or is it structured?
Very good question. I love that. I would say, from my experience, it's not a trained, it's
true spirituality.
It's true spirituality, and it is an awakening. It's a calling to our soul and our spirit.
Yeah, like bringing, to me, the 7 has the sky part, and then it brings the energy down to earth, right? With the line of the 7. So the 7, the top of the 7 envelops the sky, holds it, but then the line brings it down to the earth. So
okay, so you can be a numerologist for sure, because you do know about numerology, but what I love that you just did is you talked about, which I never talk about, because I figure, you know, a lot of times I think, well, that's kind of, you know, deep, unless you know, you're doing a class with me. But that's really good. What you talked about was the shape, because even in the, not only the numbers, but the letters as well, going by the
Sure.
shape of the letter, they, all of the letters and the numbers, they hold such rich information that it can be really an eye opener. So thank you for explaining that, because that's so true. It's like,
Yeah.
and the
So,
seven brings it down.
so it's true. I like I say, I would define it as true spirituality,
It
right?
absolutely is. So what can we do to work with all of that energy? It's to take time out. Now, certainly we're experienced in that this year, of taking time out. And things are going to, I would say by the first quarter of the year, things will start getting back into whatever we considered normal, because things are never going to be normal the way they were before. They're definitely, it's different. The energy is going to be different. How we express ourselves in the world is going to be different. How we interact with people, that's changed, and that will continue to change, but in a positive way. So January is an 8 month, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on New Year's Day, actually, because I'm going to do the month interpretation. So that's kind of that's definitely a month of karma. And February is a 9 month. So I'm thinking that that's the month that we're going to have definitely a more widespread distribution of the vaccine. And for anybody who's interested in getting the vaccine. So that's what you can expect in February, and in March is a 1 month. And I think that by March, the virus will be definitely making its exit. And numerologically, that's, you know, what it looks like here. Financially, and I do realize that, you know, for so many people, even though I didn't think this was going to be, for some people, it was, believe it or not, they did really, really well this year. And that might sound strange, but there were certain industries that really flourished this past year. So next year, financially, despite what some people think that we might have a crash or something like that, I don't see that happening at all. I think this has pushed us into new and innovative ways of doing things. So I think it's going to open up a lot of different opportunities and careers. And along that line, what I want to say is I touched upon this just briefly, but it's really about education. So if you want to go with the flow of the energy for the year for the United States, it's about getting educated. And you might think about this would be a great time, if you're thinking about changing careers, to get educated in something different and something new.
So one of the things, if you don't mind me adding this about next year, and I'll talk more in depth about it, is that one of the major astrological aspects that's happening next year is that Saturn is square Uranus. So we have Uranus in Taurus, and Terry had asked to address that a little bit. So it's really, it's if we think of Uranus as the original sky god, on some level, you know, Uranus is like the male aspect of creation, and then Gaia being the female, the Mother Earth. Uranus really like fertilized the earth. And so it's been very stressful. So Taurus likes tangible things. It likes oil, it likes gas, it likes diamonds, it likes resources, it likes the Amazon jungle, all the wood, all the water, everything. And the obviously, you know, we've been under extreme pressure with that. And I always prefer a hopeful point of view. in,
Yes.
you know, but I think that we can still expect a lot of pressure on the resources of the earth. What I wanted to kind of point out, and I'm curious, just again on your opinion, is that again we have Saturn in Aquarius square Uranus and Taurus most of the year, and this was an aspect of the Great Depression. It was going on in 1929 and 1930.
Wow.
Uranus square Taurus. I am not predicting a revisit of that. I think we've been through incredibly challenging times. But what is it, Michele, that you feel is going to sustain that not happening, us not going into another severe economic downturn?
Okay, so looking at the aspects of the United States, we have a couple of letters that are transiting that are just they keep the finances steady and even growing a little bit. And as I said, that was true here in the United States in different sectors. So I don't see this major fallout at all this coming year. I do think because of the energy of the world as well, and the 7 year, which asks you to go within, there is going to be like a little bit of an up and down, but I don't see a huge or a depression or a downturn. And I think, again, it's being educated in new ways of doing things. And for many people, it's going to be changing. This is a great year and a time to think about doing a different career.
Yeah.
For many,
I like this idea about education too, and just from the astrology point of view, the way that the way that fits in is that we have a real emphasis on air, the element of air, which is really your mind, your intellect, your thinking, your thought capacity. There are 3 Mercury retrograde cycles in 2021, and they're all in the air planets, which is like think of it like re-education, you know, re-engaging, like or you know, revisiting a new career. What is it? Thinking about it. What is it I want to do? I'm going to go and educate myself. So just again, people might be curious about the astrology. Mercury retrograde, the first one starts the end of January 30th.
okay.
Through February 21st. It's in the sign of Aquarius. So this is revisiting really where the Jupiter and Saturn are. And as time permits, I'm going to talk a little bit just more about the sign of Aquarius, because we have so many planets in the sign of Aquarius right now. But I would describe this as Mercury retrograde in Aquarius is like kind of sweeping the floor. It's going through, it's going to sweep all that dust and dirt out of Aquarius and leave us with the, you know, the shiny, new, bright energy, true Aquarian energy to begin the year. So I know people get a little bit nervous around Mercury retrograde. So get ready, January 30th.
Well, I'm just gonna wrap this up a little bit and then turn it over to you, because I want to hear more about the astrology. So again, for people, generally speaking, if you want to work with the energy, re-examine some of the areas of your life that you think need upgrades. Think about your relationship to the world, and how you see yourself fitting into that. And that might seem like a really strange question, but what I'm saying is we are in this together. As we began this Facebook Live tonight, and you mentioned that, Maya, that we're truly in this together. So how do you see yourself fitting into this world? What can you do? And there's all different ways that we can contribute in a positive way. And probably one of the most important ways to do that is to be doing what you're passionate about and what you really love to do. Because anything that you love to do is going to add to the uplifting of the world. And one of the things that I say over and over again is if you love to make ice cream, then just be the best damn ice cream maker, and that will bring joy to other people. So there's no lofty or lowly positions or careers or whatever it is. It's all important, but the most important thing is to do what you love to do and do it with passion. And for some people, believe it or not, that is challenging. Some people say, I really don't know what my passion is. I'm not really sure about that. And I'm not sure what my destiny is. And I can just tell you that get in touch with Maya and I, and we can certainly help you figure out and know what your destiny is, what your mission is in this life. And also as a coach, I do that as well. But astrology and numerology can both point you in the direction of what is your destiny and your mission in this life. So think about that. And if you're doing what you love to do already, that is fabulous. It's a very spiritual, sabbatical, and transitional year. People will be feeling more psychic energy. More people will be getting premonitions. More people will be tuned in. So with that, since it's already almost 8:40, I want to turn it over to you, Maya, and what gems you have to share with us.
Okay. So I'll go back to the Mercury retrograde cycles because I think people would really want to know about those dates. So just to revisit, the first Mercury retrograde will be from January 30th to February 21st. It's in the sign of Aquarius. The second Mercury retrograde will be from May 29th until June 11th. It's in the sign of Gemini. The third Mercury retrograde will be September 27th through October 23rd, and it's in Libra. I wanted to point out that these three signs are all, number one, air element, but they're also the person signs, like the glyph for each one of these signs is a human. It's not an animal. All the other signs are animals or variation of an animal. So getting back to this theme of Aquarius, we are one, we are humans, we're becoming the best version of ourselves that we can be.
Wow. Yeah. And I'm an Aquarian, so I'm really excited about that.
Yes. And generally speaking, especially the beginning of this year, by January 15th, we have in the sign of Aquarius, the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, and Uranus. That's 5 planets in Aquarius.
Is that unusual to have so many planets?
That's quite a bit. That's a lot, and considering that if you think of like the sign of Aquarius, like that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, like it broke it open, right? Like it illuminated the sign. So now we have all the planets coming in and doing their job. I describe a planet as a filter of the sun, right? Planets are filters of the solar logos energy. And then also planets are traditionally considered to be teachers. So Mercury will be teaching his version, what he has to say in Aquarius. Venus will be teaching what she wants to express in Aquarius, each one of the planets. So I would say that for us all, really, collectively, We are becoming our best version of our Aquarian selves.
And the Aquarian is the humanitarian, correct?
The Aquarius is the humanitarian. It is, you know, kind of an all for one, but one for all also, right? You know, Aquarius can sometimes sacrifice either personal or perhaps even, you know, intimate or imminent interest for the collective. My favorite Aquarius example is Abraham Lincoln, who freed the slaves. That maybe I've even talked about this on a show with you before, because if you think about it, I mean, I've just read a little bit of history. He was under extreme pressure to do what he did. He had to be completely hold true to his vision. And, you know, yes, he wanted to free the slaves, but he just, you know, he had to true to that Aquarian. He had to hold on to his vision and hold on to his truth. I think that's the other big point. It's like it's your truth. It's your individual truth. So, you know, that is really going on. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the planet Saturn, because Saturn has sometimes kind of a bad reputation or a bad rap.
It
right?
it does have a bad rap. Yeah, it's the teacher. I'm gonna teach you something.
Yeah, I'm gonna teach you. I'm gonna teach you.
Taskmaster. Yeah, right.
But you can also look at the word Saturn and break it down into the words sat and urn. So an urn is a holder, it's a vessel for our sat, for our lessons, for our what we learn, what we come to do on earth, and how we're growing, right? So it's the vessel of our growth, it's the vessel of our mission. So Saturn can feel very heavy, but yet it can also allow you to take command of your own destiny.
So that's really important. And I think that in this year, 2020, we've been under this energy of, hey, you got to pay attention to what's going on in the world and in your life and connecting with one another. But and I think it's been a really, really hard lesson. But I think that along the lines of what you're talking about with Saturn, I think, yes, the 7 is calling us also to pay attention, but I don't think it's going to be as dramatic or as terrifying as, if that's the word for this year. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But there's lessons for us to learn, but I don't think they're going to come as hard as they have this past year. And so I don't know, how do you feel about that?
I feel that way too. I think that strangely enough, you know, the COVID situation, I think it's matured us all as human beings, you know. It, like tough love from the universe on some level. It was absolutely unpleasant, still is unpleasant, but you know, I think it's made us grow up. And I see a note here from Isabel saying that she's exhausted from her work and would love to be happy doing what she loves, but she doesn't know what to do. So Isabel, I would say, first of all, just, you know, tune in, just to be able, give yourself 10 minutes or 15 minutes of quiet time, and start to really learn to use your body as, you know, as an antenna. Go into this, there's a lot of teachings about vibration, you know, finding the right vibration, being on it. And I have seen it work in my own life and in the lives of others, is that when you really do tune in, like, it works. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And it doesn't take too long. It takes some effort, but it can come together pretty fast. So breathing, tuning in, quiet time, music. And Isabel, I really, I promise if you do that, if you give it that attention, you will get the reward.
Right. And if I could add this, another thing that, because I think absolutely when we tune in, the answers are all there. It's just, turning the dial to the right frequency, like on a radio, right? It's such a good example because, well, nobody turns a dial anymore on a radio,
I
but
do.
okay.
I do.
Okay. So I'm sure there are people out there that do, but when you're not right on the frequency, the right frequency, there's a lot of static. And that's the same thing with us, exactly the same.
Yeah.
When we're not connected to, and what connects us to the frequency is what you just said. It's getting quiet, going within, taking the time. And the clues, a lot of times the clues to what our passion is, believe it or not, is go back to your childhood and think about the games that you like to play, what you like to do as a child, if it was outdoors, if you were definitely somebody who liked to be in the earth and running around and climbing trees. And so that's just a little clue of what really gives you joy. If you were always like cutting out paper dolls and stuffing, things like that, creating, that's another clue. I always, if I'm doing career counseling with somebody, those are some of the questions. Actually, it's a longer, form and everything I haven't fill out, but finding out what anybody loved to do as a child, you're going to get a clue to what it is. It's your mission and your passion.
That, and I would say also ask yourself, what would I do if I could do it and I didn't have to get paid?
Great question. Always a great question.
What would I do if I weren't getting paid? So, yeah. And I mean, that tuning in, that's all Aquarius stuff too.
Yeah.
Because the glyph for Aquarius, people are familiar with this, human, male, female, usually it's a male, but a human being pouring out. And a lot of people think he's pouring out water, but he's actually pouring out wisdom to humanity. He's pouring out the element of air, intelligence, wisdom. And we humans do have a unique capacity for intelligence.
It just clicked for me too, what you just said about the element of air and what it's calling us, to do. And really 7, I guess if I was going to give, a attribute to 7, whether that would be air or water or earth, I think I would lean towards air with the number 7, because it is about analyzation and going within and thinking, analyzing, going deep. That's what the 7 is. So it sounds like those are in alignment, the planets and the numeric interpretation of the year are in alignment. And I love when that happens, because I know that there's times when we've discussed things and it seems like the astrology and the numerology kind of mirror one another as far as energetically what's going on, whether it's in a chart or in the world. And 7 is also about specialization. So I think for sure we're going to see more specialized careers or industries or whatever that might look like. It is definitely the year of the specialization. But what other things would you like to tell us about astrology?
There's 2 other things I want to talk about, and these are things that are a bit, the astrological lingo is a bit technical, so I don't really have to get into detail about this. And these are two sayings about 2021 that I did not come up with. They were written by a man named Robert Wilkinson. I want to be sure to give him credit. Robert is the author of a book called Saturn, Spiritual Master, Spiritual Friend. And he has a website. I think it's Aquarius something. I don't have his website written down, but definitely take a look at his book on Saturn, Spiritual Master, Spiritual Friend. So Robert has described 2021 as the year of grand irrationality.
Oh my
I
goodness.
know.
Wow.
I had to share it. He said, because there's some septile and some unusual dynamics between the outer planets. They're forming like kind of weird, obscure aspects, but yet they're maintaining those weird, obscure aspects. And yeah, he called it the grand irrationality. Things don't make sense.
Wow.
So
Perfect.
deal with it, right? Like it's a 7 and a 5,
Wow.
right? Like things won't necessarily make sense. And I really thought that was, I just, I had to share it. I thought it was beautiful. And he also described within the grand irrationality that we would come to a fork in the road of destiny.
Wow. And that's the same thing. That's the crossroads that
exactly the crossroads. Yeah. I thought it was beautiful. I wanted to share that. And then he also, I just don't want to run out of time on this. He also described, again, a somewhat unusual, but yet very tight, consistent semi-square between Uranus and Neptune. And he called it the rhombus diamond. And that 2021 will be a year of grinding, cutting, and polishing.
God, that makes so much sense.
I thought it was beautiful. I just had to share it, as it is. And again, Robert Wilkinson, thank you. This is beautiful, beautiful information. So
love that.
We're all excited about a new year. And I think we all feel that we've been through the fire, and now here we are, wiser, better, smarter.
Right. Hopefully wiser, smarter, better. And I do believe that that's the energy that's calling to us. And another thing that's really important is for all of us we've been so polarized, and it is definitely now the time to come together. And we really, really have to let go of any anger or judgments that we've had about other people or other political parties. It is really, really time to let go. It is really a time it's always a time for us to come together. So when I say it's really a time, I'm just saying that the energies that are prevailing right now are kind of putting their arms around us and saying, come home, come home.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It really is time to come home, and we're here for you. I think, again, the connection, the energetic connection between us and the energy of the higher beings and of the astral planes and the spiritual world it's getting so much closer and tighter. It's really going to be so much easier, again, for us to make that connection, to pull in that energy. And I'm not sure what else I wanted to say, but we only have like a minute here. So is there something you'd like to close with, Maya?
I would like to close with gratitude, remembrance of gratitude, because that's really where it all begins, and I think where it all ends. And just closing with this idea of, yes, we have a lot of air energy, but we have to be in our bodies and we have to be in our hearts.
Absolutely.
Happy 2021.
Listen, thank you, Maya, for being on the show tonight. I so appreciate it. And to everyone out there, if you want more information about astrology and numerology, just contact us. Be well, be positive, have love in your heart, and again, be positive. And thank you all so much for being with us tonight. And we'll talk.